afternoon, Innsmouth. Those Hivequakes last week opened up a new pathway into the sump, and we followed Kevin, like normal, right into the Endless Library. Thankfully, the Vox signal is strong. We are 665.66 UHMA Chemrat Radio, broadcasting at least as long as we can dodge the Archivist.
Well, at least we are out of the blood rain that is drenching the Underhive. I gotta tell you, not being drenched in hydraulic fluid, either from the Mechanicus machines or Frank down the street.
Speaking of dripping in blood, the Innsmouth Fried Chaos Reign of Terror was brought to a screeching halt by Grisnek the Flayed. Cult leadership was found arranged back-to-back in a triangle with the Splatterhawks OG's signature style of an axe split down the middle of their skulls, mimicking that bloody mohawk.
We can breathe easier, at least until the glass eaters get antsy again. Antsy. And angsty? Angsty? Is angsty a word?
Yeah,
antsy, because then they itchy because they got the bugs on their skin.
Antsy. Yeah, that's what that means.
I am your ghoulishly ghostly host with the most, Goblin King, joined as always by our map and compass expert, Pathfinder Marky.
Yo.
Running our heavy weapons support with an auto cannon in each arm is Beast.
Good evening, everyone.
He leads us into the depths of the sump to find the very best loot. Tell us, Kev, how are we tempting the Archivist's wrath today?
Well, let me just say, if you get caught, your face might be the new cover of a book.
I did hear she is very particular about her books. You know, I also heard that she's willing to talk to us here at the podcast, but I don't think asking her while we're caught trespassing is a good way to do it.
Probably best to ask from outside the facility.
Yeah.
Fuck that.
All right, guys. So this is our third episode on Astra Militarum. As we go through, this is probably going to be one of our larger series just because there's a lot of stuff on it. I imagine Space Marines are probably going to be pretty large too. Necrons will be pretty large as well. And then when we do the Collegia Titanica and the Knight households, we'll probably get a little bit into the depths of some lore too. It's fun. And what we want to happen with a lot of this stuff, and the reason that we bring up a lot of it and we point out some dates and some different particular times in lore, is to not only give you some jumping off points for creating the lore for your own armies, but also just sort of provide a background foundation for why this faction might work. And there's a lot of Guard players. We've gotten a lot of feedback already from the people who play Guard who are in our community, which is super awesome. And, you know, between Kevin and myself, we've got a lot of wealth of the books read. Between Beast and Marky, Beast knows a lot of the lore. Marky asks a lot of good questions.
They've both killed a lot of guardsmen on the table.
Yeah. They've both killed a lot of guardsmen.
I was going to say, that's probably more than anything.
A lot of my guardsmen, to be precisely.
We have both killed many guardsmen.
That's just my job on the podcast, just to ask questions. So why did Sanguinius die? Why? Don't answer that, Kevin.
Why? What are these animals?
Why does Sanguinius have wings? I think I know the answer. Don't answer that, Kevin.
Why do you pronounce it weird?
Sanguinius?
Yeah.
It's Sanguinius.
It's Sanguinius, not Sanguinius.
What did I say?
Sanguinius.
And I said Sanguinius?
No, you said Sanguinius.
Sanguinius?
It's Sanguinius.
You guys are both saying the same fucking thing. I don't know what's going on,
man. It sounds like I'm saying pangolin.
Tom thinks that Mark
Good
is
old
saying
pangolin.
Sanguinius.
Yeah.
Is what Tom. That's what Tom thinks you're saying.
Well, I say
because he's full of
people say I say Pringles funny.
Pringles.
Pringles. It's not Pringles.
There's no A.
Got that sour cream on that Pringles.
There's an A in how I say it, goddammit.
Got them sour cream and Pringles. Put my dick in the tube.
So a lot happens in the lead up to M41 and the modern lore for the Guard, with a lot of big events that shape how they're currently set up and how they're used in the game. Probably and arguably the biggest event in that being the 13th Black Crusade. An interesting point of view from a state of the game.
Gave us a new stratagem.
Yeah.
We'll get there.
Was that the big one? 13th? That was the
13th is the big one. The 13th will probably get its own episode.
Yeah.
The 13th Black Crusade, the Black Crusades in entirety will get their own series. The 13th Black Crusade will probably get its own chunk of next episode in the Guard series.
Yeah.
Because a lot of shit happens.
Yeah, because that would be like the one where
No spoilers.
no spoilers, but it basically changed like the way Cadia was.
It changed
looked at.
everything.
It changed everything.
It changed the whole galaxy in reality.
Right.
I think a lot of people understand that the fall of Cadia happened, but
but I don't think people
Now
understand.
you ruined it. You ruined it.
Yeah, spoilers, Ryan.
Spoils.
Jesus.
I ruined it on purpose because from a state of the game side of things, which is not really a lot of stuff that we talk about because we try to avoid the game and how the game has evolved. But the 13th Black Crusade was put into place in like 4th edition, and it was put into place around the same time that GW had started to focus on the idea of crusades, which obviously has led to narrative support. And are they called crusades now? They are called crusades now. They were campaigns, but the Eye of Terror book, which is a 4th edition book, specifically talks about crusade play, narrative play in the 13th Black Crusade. So it's very interesting how long this event has been happening.
It's
pretty
up.
cool.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I think there was a game on it too, right? Battlefleet Gothic 2.
Yeah,
That
of course
revolves around the aftermath of the 13th, like the
Oh, okay.
immediate aftermath,
immediate. Okay,
like,
gotcha.
like the day after.
and it's a video game, which follows it's another game, which is Battlefleet Gothic, the first video game, and that is based on the Battlefleet Gothic tabletop game itself. And the Gothic Wars, which are chronicled in the rule set for Battlefield Gothic.
Battlefleet Gothic.
Battlefleet Gothic. Thank you.
Battlefield
Deals
Gothic.
needs to happen.
Hashtag-
COD. Battlefield
Hashtag EA,
Gothic.
don't fuck that one up, please.
That deals with the 12th Black Crusade, which allowed Abaddon to set up a lot of the things that happened in the 13th Black Crusade.
Which,
So
if
this is
you
all
subtract
around-
2 from the 12th Black Crusade,
You
it
get
equals 10,
Yeah.
which is the amount of toes you have. So,
right. So
Dun, dun,
Tiznich
dun,
hasn't
dun,
won
dun.
yet.
yes.
Dun, 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 dun.
I'm going to go get my tinfoil hat from the other room on that one, Marky. So there's basically a lot of G-dub history that kind of follows post 3.5 edition era, if you want to say, with Battlefleet Gothic and the Eye of Terror campaign book, even the specialty rules that came out for City Fight, which dealt with a lot of the dense urban packed combat scenarios that they were getting into.
That was one of the big ones that Guard players specifically liked because I think it had a lot of Imperial Guard specific stuff. Or at least
and
moving our men through all that terrain is a lot easier than trying to move a bunch of dreadnoughts and Terminators.
there's a battle that we'll talk about today that is very reminiscent of City Fight. There's a couple, but one to me really stood out. I thought was kind of interesting. This is also the time, as far as like our real world is concerned, where the Black Library exploded with content. Back 20 years ago, there were a couple of comic books and White Dwarf. There was nothing else. As the 12th Black Crusade wrapped up and as the 13th Black Crusade kind of became part of the lore and part of G-Dub actually working lore into the game, the Black Library exploded. We'll talk about the Tanith Person Only again. We'll definitely talk about in the future, probably in season 2, we'll get into some of the Horus Heresy
Do you
stuff.
know if
So much came out of
the Horus Heresy
this
books
era.
came out before? Like,
They started coming out around this time, around this like
This
4th to 5th edition.
okay.
After third. Okay.
3.5 to 4.5. There's also a really weird thing that happens. We talk a lot about how we're in 9th edition now. And again, not really the focus of the podcast. So to just be super brief, there was a very definite 1st edition, which was called Rogue Trader. And then everything changed and we got rules that are a little bit closer to what makes sense for the way the game is played, which was called 2nd edition. And then 3rd edition really kind of led, if you went back and played 3rd edition today, you would at least see the path that 3rd took to get to 8th. And how 8th kind of refined it a little bit into 9th. But realistically, between 3rd edition and about 7th edition, codex supplements came out, but there wasn't necessarily a new codex every edition. They just
it was
released
every few years.
they just released new rule books, which simplified the overall rules. So in a lot of times you might be using
A 3rd edition codex and 5th edition. Yeah.
Right. And very famously, there's 2 Imperial Guard codexes that are both considered 3rd edition codexes. There's the green camo cover, which is the 3rd edition codex. And then there is the black soft cover, which is considered the 3.5 codex.
Back in my day, I would have used the 6th edition codex and 9th edition. All you youngins right now complaining about not having a codex after a year, you're soft.
I remember
You're
back
real
when I
soft.
used to play 40k way before you.
That's not what I'm trying
No,
to say.
no,
I'm just trying to like illustrate how the game
I'm just trying to
evolved,
make them feel
because
bad.
the game's evolution gave us a lot of really cool lore. 7th edition rolled around and everything kind of streamlined into what we're used to now. There's an edition release, there's codexes releases that are applied to that edition, and then when they refine the rules, there's a new edition and new codexes. Those of you who have been playing since 8th, which is a lot of our community, you guys know Psychic Awakening is essentially like an 8.5
Right,
edition
exactly.
in a lot of ways if you want to look
That's
at it.
kind of how I viewed it when it came out. I was like, okay, so these Psychic Awakening books are
Yeah.
revamping.
And then you get to use it for 3 months, and then 9th edition comes out.
Dude, I was kind of mad.
Yeah,
I mean, I
yeah.
still get to use it, but I know the problem is once my 9th edition codex comes out, what the hell do I do with all that stuff? Because all my custom
Hey,
regiments
it all gets
are in there.
archived, bro.
All the Scion
It
stuff
gets archived.
is all in there.
It gets archived, and then when 14th edition comes out, you can be like, back in 9th edition, I had all these books. Like,
That's why you just do what I
When
do.
we to readdressing lore in 14th edition and I'm doing research, I'm going to be pouring through 8th and 9th edition.
Yeah.
That's why you just do what I do.
Because people like me buy them.
You cut out all the pictures and post them up. That's what I do with old codexes.
That's actually a good idea.
I buy old codexes for the lore and for the
dude,
pictures.
I want to have a coffee table book for every army.
dude,
The City Fight book specifically has an entire section on how to make terrain, which is it's fucking
dude,
badass.
the Rogue Trader,
It is so
the Rogue
cool.
Trader hardback is like $300, man. I was trying to get one on eBay because I
bet.
wanted to read lore and like look at the pictures.
The first edition.
Yeah, well, not first edition. It just has to be the fucking just the Rogue
It's
Trader.
the Rogue
Yeah,
Trader
Yeah.
book.
and it's fucking like $300. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, man. Second edition is like, I think pretty cheap. It's a little harder to come by though.
Yeah, because nobody
Yeah.
cares.
Right.
And at a certain point, I mean, like, looking over on my bookshelf right now, I've got 6 rule editions. Do I use them? No. Is there cool lore in there? 100%. Are there cool pictures in there? 100%. It's a cool artifact in history
Exactly.
of the
It's
game.
like a
that we
fucking
play.
yearbook, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like you buy a yearbook because you're like, yeah, look at this freckled fuck. I
I
used to
didn't.
hate that guy.
I didn't.
You didn't buy yearbooks, Tom?
No.
I actually got rid of my yearbooks recently because I'm like, why am I looking? Because yearbooks are ridiculously heavy.
They are super heavy.
You think the core rule book for Warhammer 40k is heavy? Go pick up your yearbook. I'm like, what the
Oh,
fuck
my
did
yearbook
you
is pretty
do?
thin.
They shoved so much shit into our yearbook. Every senior got their own page.
Oh yeah.
Well, if you paid for it, I didn't pay for it, so I didn't get my own page.
Well, I guess
I was like, I am not paying $150 fucking dollars for my own. No one gives a shit about me. I
Right.
don't care either.
That's how I always felt. I was like, I don't
All
give a
right.
fuck about these people.
well, I mean, I don't care now.
Right.
It's the memories.
Yeah.
I also have my, high school sweetheart on there, so
That's-
it's a
yeah.
little bit different for me.
Fucking loser.
Well, Tom's a whore, so it's different.
I'm reformed now.
Reformed whore.
I'm a reformed whore now.
So to roll us into the meat
No,
of our
you're just
episode,
unemployed.
I'm just gonna keep cutting that Ryan off like that every time.
Ryan
keeps-
gets in it.
Ryan keeps trying to start the episode. Fuck that noise. So to start us off on an uplifting quote before we dive into some history of the Imperial Guard, Tom, what do you got for us?
What does it matter? Sorry, I was sitting on one of my testicles. What does it matter that our world loses an entire generation in battle, if by not losing it our world had no more generations at all? Imperial Commander Abrest Cotol during the mass conscription of Durant III.
We are going to focus today on M41, which is the time of ending, before we move into the 13th Black Crusade and the era Indominus, probably next episode, right before we cover regiments and some of the Exilia, abhumans, and some other stuff that the Guard deal with. The darkness continues to consume the Imperium, while the enemy without and the enemy within grow in strength and number. The Imperial ties are increased, and the ranks of the Astra Militarum grow larger than they have been in a millennia. Many heroes are forged in the unending crucible of war. So the first chunk we are going to talk about is the Gothic War, also known as the 12th Black Crusade. This takes place between 139.m41 and 160.m41.
So all the other crusades, would they be like almost Horus Heresy kind of thing? Like after the Horus Heresy, it was just like crusade after crusade after crusade kind of thing?
A lot of them were, a lot of the crusades that we covered in the time leading up to M41 last episode, those all happened between the heresy and between the time of ending.
Gotcha.
Time of ending represents the lore that's existed during all of the editions of play of Warhammer 40k.
Do we know if Abaddon, he pretty much led every crusade, right? Every Black Crusade?
So yeah, there's been 13 Black Crusades. All of the Black Crusades have been led by Abaddon.
Right,
Um, Not
so
all of the Crusades have been led by Abaddon.
did all of those start coming out of the Eye of Terror passing Cadia and like Cadia defended it, or were these like in different locations and shit?
Right, so the Black Crusades will get their own episode, and
Okay,
some of them are relatively simple. Some of them are like Abaddon
that's what I've
came
heard
out
too.
alone and went
Right.
questing to find some items, and nobody really knew he was doing it.
Right.
Abaddon also, during the Siege of Terra, during the Siege of the Solar System, before the Siege of Terra, specifically went above the galactic elliptical and came down at Terra.
Essentially teabagging them.
Yeah, as Perturabo's forces were bashing through the solar system, he was like, nah, fuck that, and came from above. The Sons of Horus's, or not the Sons of Horus's, the Luna Wolves tactic was Abaddon would lead his strike forces to cut off the head of the snake. Pretty much 1st and 5th Company, which were the Terminator companies of the Luna Wolves, which became the Sons of Horus, continued to do that strategy. Horus ran stuff a little bit differently, but Abaddon is very much known for that, like, fuck fighting through the foot sloggers. I'm going to kill the commanders and decimate. Like, I don't care about your front line.
So he
I'm going to
maintained kind of
murder
like-
your command squad.
Yeah, so he kind of maintained like Horus's battle tactics essentially.
That was Abaddon's battle tactics. Horus was not
Horus did it
necessarily
differently.
like that. Yeah.
Oh, really?
That's actually why Abaddon and Horus didn't see eye to eye when it came to the Siege of Terra.
oh.
Yeah, believe it or not, Abaddon was
Black-
not
this is all
down
Black
for
Crusade
sieging
stuff.
Terra.
Yeah. It's all Black Crusade stuff, all Chaos Marine stuff.
Oh, teasers for you guys.
We're getting there. As Marky brought up, the 12th Black Crusade was led by the War Master of Chaos, Abaddon the Despoiler. And in this case, he did launch a massive crusade against the Imperium. This was into the Gothic sector, which is strategically important to the Imperium as it is adjacent to the Eye of Terror. So he came out of the Eye of Terror and went immediately into the Gothic sector.
And then when he's leading these Black Crusades, these would be like, I guess, identified as Chaos Undivided fleets at that point.
Sometimes. In the
Sometimes,
case
okay.
of the 12th Black Crusade, it was seen as big and kind of scary because he was leading the united ruinous powers under the banner of Chaos Undivided.
And
Gotcha.
previously it hadn't been yet.
It hadn't always been, or it had been small
Or it'd been
enough that it hadn't been
sporadic
mattered.
and-
And like,
Okay.
I think the 9th Black Crusade, he literally sent a demon at Cadia just to fuck with. He was like, go fuck with Cadia. I'm going to go over here and steal somebody's lunch money. Go beat up Cadia so I can do that.
Yeah.
So the conflict consumes hundreds of planets and spawns hundreds, if not thousands, of naval battles. While Abaddon was eventually forced to retreat, he manages to achieve several goals, including showing the Imperium that he could basically show up and fucking destroy an Imperial world if he wanted to. He also caused widespread devastation of the Imperial Navy. It was also this event, or this war, that showed the importance of the alien artifacts known as the Blackstone Fortresses, which will probably get their own episode. Abaddon managed to capture a few of the Blackstone Fortresses, one of which he used to destroy a planet. And this is actually kind of a clue into what his actual intentions are, which will come up when we cover the 13th Black Crusade. He was only forced to retreat when an overwhelming force of Titan legions, Imperial Guard forces, and Space Marines showed up to reinforce the sector. During the final Imperial victory, during the Battle of Schindelgeist, the Elysian 234th executed a suicide mission onto the Hades-class heavy cruiser, the Injustice, and managed to scuttle the ship. For this, they are awarded posthumous commendations. This is also one of the big turning points towards the end of the 12th Black Crusade.
Oh, that's a big space marine. You've been juiced up for 10,000 years by the dark gods. Sucks for you. I'm a human and I'm holding a grenade.
Wasn't he always that kind of? Wasn't he always kind of big though?
No, just in general.
Yeah.
Just the concept that a bunch of humans just boarded their ship and basically just blew it up and be like, fuck you guys.
Hey, it was all planned.
Well, yeah, but losing that ship was probably not part of the plan.
I don't give a shit. They're in the warp, dude.
We'll talk about what was and what wasn't in Abaddon's master plan when it comes to
But that was the guard win.
how spanked
That was
you
a guard
guys
win.
get later.
I mean, but
But
losing
this is the
capital
guard-
ships is never part of the plan.
You know what?
This
you know what
is
else
the
isn't part
guard
of the plan?
episode.
You know
So
what else isn't part of the plan? Losing the planet.
we're gonna talk.
Actually- Actually, it was.
Dem is fighting words.
Dem's is fighting words, but it was. It was part of the plan. I mean,
Hey, who
is it
would've
really
thought?
winning if you didn't keep
If you-
all your
if you
friends
did-
alive along the way?
When we talk about the Chaos Space
Depends how
Marine
close they are.
episode, and we're talking about how they like fucked you guys here and fucked you guys there and fucked you
Ryan-
guys there.
so
we're just gonna
Ryan's really
recall this
biased.
episode.
Ryan is just
Yeah.
really biased because he's a chaos player and he has a big raging veiny hard-on for Abaddon.
What are
I
you
think
talking
he's
about?
just
Oh,
salty
talking
about only having one wound still.
Abaddon?
Fuck that.
So-
Abaddon.
and-
Abaddon with one wound. Fucking
It's,
one
it's
wound.
just going to turn into a debate between, our guard player and our chaos player. But Ryan is telling the story as best he can right now.
Yeah, through his bias, chaos bias.
My point was Warhammer lore is always going to be biased to the faction you're talking about.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And I like, honestly, I'm wanting to redo my Catachans, so it comes in waves. I just didn't want all those Cadians, and I had like fucking so many Cadians, and now Kevin has so many Cadians.
Yes, I do. It's not enough. I need more men.
In 216.m41, the relief of Badavast. The city of Badavast on Segaristok is besieged by thousands of Kornanit chaos cultists. If I pronounce any of these weird-ass Russian names wrong, yell at me later.
You've already butchered every pronunciation this episode.
You fucked up the pronunciation of everything so far? Come on, bro.
No, I meant all the words. Like the specific ones.
I didn't say
You know what
everything.
I'm
I just
talking
meant
about.
everything.
You know what I'm talking about.
Is Baden-Vost not right? Baden-Vost not right.
That would be Baudenvost. And then Segrenstoch.
I'm not
You're not
putting
putting
enough
it- you're
Russian
not put-
into my
you gotta put more phlegm in
pronunciation.
it.
You gotta add
I'm
more
not going.
phlegm.
I'm not going
Tom and I have
in the
this
right
conversa-
places, and
Tom and I have all
Kevin's
these
mad.
conversations when we're driving around this Russian ass map in Cheneris
Oh my
on
God.
DayZ, and he's like, "Let's go to whatever Polonia," and I'm like, "Vistonia, Polonia."
Yeah, I'm like, we need
let's
to go to
comrade."
Frappadoop.
And I'm like, "Yeah, Captain Kobibda."
Yeah. Come on, whatever. Put peanut butter back in your mouth.
Captain Kobibda.
Got that peanut butter in your mouth.
So in 216 M41 was the relief of Baden-Vost. The city of Baden-Vost on Segernosk,
Oh my
or whatever the hell I'm
God.
supposed to
Sikorsky.
do with my phlegm, is besieged by thousands of Kornate chaos cultists. They are barely held at bay by Cadian shock troops who garrison buildings and use Bulgarins as a literal flesh wall to hold them at bay.
door.
Relief comes in the relief comes in the 11th hour when the Vistroyan
It's like Attack on Titan, dude.
motherfucker.
I like how it just slowly broke you.
Hordor.
You just couldn't hold it.
Relief comes in the 11th hour when the Vistroyan 45th Regiment deploys Manicores and Death Strikes in mass against the enemy. The enemy and collateral death toll is staggering, but
Isn't it
the
always,
city
though?
is saved.
Mm-hmm.
So
This is a recurring theme
yes.
with the guard. We murdered everybody,
they
but the
won.
city's fine.
it's okay. They can repopulate.
Yeah.
It's like
humans, if nothing, breed fantastically fast.
it's like Eminem from 8 Mile. They're all like rabbits. They're fast. They like to fuck a lot.
Mhm.
There's some departmento minatorum things in this episode that are going to
Oh, I'm
tickle
sure.
Kevin. I'm sure he already knows them, but they're still
They
going to
always
tickle him.
do.
And 414.m41 was the Crimson Ridge atrocity. Some of these names are just fucking
Some of them are
amazing.
great.
In the First War of Armageddon, Angron, the Dreamin Primarch of the World Eaters Legion, leads a massive chaos host in attacking the planet, conquering the subcontinent of Armageddon Prime swiftly. The Space Wolves and the Armageddon Steel Legion stubbornly hold on to the territory of Armageddon Secundus. Angron is finally banished, but not before his forces slaughter millions of Imperial Guard. To make matters worse, the Inquisition moves in to purge knowledge and history of the First War of Armageddon. They forcibly sterilize entire regiments before confining them to Imperial labor camps, and even call exterminatuses to silence entire planets in the vicinity. Commissars execute their own Imperial commanders and command detachments before willingly submitting to mind wipes by the Inquisition. The true death toll of the First War of Armageddon is impossible
That
to
also
calculate.
led
That's pretty
to
gnarly.
it's called the Time of Shame. Was that little mini war between the Space Wolves trying to get they saved some of the guardsmen. They were like, no, you guys fought bravely. We're gonna save you guys. Fuck the Inquisition, and the
Like
Inquisition
save them
like,
how?
you're
Like,
a
don't let them
bitch.
mind wipe them.
Like got them off world
Okay.
and like evacuated them.
Yeah, so the Inquisition basically chemically castrated everybody in these surviving regiments and then said, you guys can't fight on the front lines anymore. You need to go die in a penal
Oh,
colony.
And the Space Wolves were like, no.
Wait, so why did they
Nah,
do that
nah,
to the
dog.
guardsmen? Oh, because they fought
Because
chaos?
they not only saw chaos, they also
Because
saw
they
Grey
didn't
Knights in the
want-
process.
Oh.
This is the first time Grey Knights were deployed in mass
Mhm.
anywhere.
Gotcha.
And the Inquisition is like, can't let anybody know about that.
Gotcha.
The primary reason is they didn't want the guardsmen having kids and then telling their kids what happened. They tried to wipe. They did their best to wipe the first war of Armageddon from the
Yeah,
history books.
because they just didn't want anybody to know that chaos could summon a bunch of demons and attack a world.
Uh,
Because that looks
Well-
bad.
well,
in
if you
the
talk
PR.
to
it's
a
not
lot
only
of-
that, but it's the chaos influence, right?
right,
So, like,
just knowing about chaos essentially.
and it
Right.
was
Oh, right.
Angron.
breeds chaos.
And it was Angron who was
No.
supposed to be dead. Angron shows up and proves that
And
your
he's still
history
alive,
is
right?
wrong.
Yeah.
Angron is
Angron is still
Oh,
alive.
yeah, you can't kill demon primarchs.
They
They
get
just kind of
banished
go away
away
for a
it's,
bit.
it's like a spirit kind of, right? Or a demon, right? You
Yeah.
can't kill
They-
demons, you just banish them back.
They
The
basically
demon Primarchs have all the perks
they
of
just
being a
recollect and
Primarch
come
and
back.
a greater demon.
Gotcha.
The other thing to kind of note, or the other thing that's kind of interesting, is that if you talk to a lot of people about the Wars of Armageddon, they'll talk to you a lot about orcs. They will not bring up this event because not a lot of players know this because
Mind wipe.
they did a
So,
good job.
so where is this information found? If not, or is it found in like the codexes of like?
It's digging through
they
codexes
reference
and,
the-
and
almost
balancing
like
knowledge. Yeah.
Sieged Fenris.
So it's almost like
all kinds of
redacted
stuff.
information. So it's
Oh,
like,
it would totally all be like
Yeah.
labeled redacted.
It's
right?
not
It would
printed.
be in side print. in
dude,
the
just the
codex.
idea of like as the game progresses, as the story progresses, and you have things like, oh, there was this secret war. Like it's like almost like I don't want to say like the Emu War, but it's like, oh, the
Right.
secret war that happened that was like so old that not your players don't know about this, or like it's
Right,
just
that
cool.
unless you
The
were
idea
there
was
when you
cool.
saw that printed in
Right,
that codex, you probably
exactly.
don't even know it happened.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We specifically didn't print it in the 8th edition codex because the Imperium
Mhm.
redacted it. It's stuff like
Little
it's
stuff like
cool
that,
stuff
yeah.
like that. Like the original purpose of the 2 missing Primarchs wasn't that there were 2 missing Primarchs that nobody talks about. They were there so players could make their own
Yeah, their
Primarchs
own
and their own
chapters.
legions.
Mhm.
And but as they've moved forward, they've been like, nah,
Yeah,
those are
right.
just gone.
Missing.
So we can sell more
Right.
books later.
They're like, so when we run out of plot armor,
And I,
Yeah, no
and
shit.
I
we
will,
can kill off that character.
I
Give
will buy those
another
books.
armor.
Yeah, Gilliman had another brother.
Gilliman had a
brother.
twin.
Yeah,
Gilmagon.
Gilligan.
Gilligan. And he lived on an island.
He was stranded on an island. Oh, dude. Fucking hilarious.
he shows up, he makes uncomfortable eye contact with Gilliman, and he goes, I am Alfarius.
I've been stranded on an archipelago.
Mark knows a word.
Did you learn that one from your audiobook?
I learned it from you guys.
No, we,
yeah.
yeah, we
It's a-
taught
it's a
him.
turd
We taught him what an archipelago was.
submerges into water, comes back out, and submerges back into water multiple times.
Essentially. One of
Yeah.
those long snaky ones that goes bloop, bloop, bloop.
You forget what we talked about in the production meeting on Monday, and you remember the turd joke I made about an
6
island
months
like
ago.
18 episodes
You know
ago.
what? You know what?
Yeah.
That's what fits in his brain.
I'm sorry, dude. That's just the way my
Yeah, there
shitty
you go.
brain works.
There you go.
Too
Yeah.
many concussions, apparently.
Yeah, it only knows shit.
Yeah,
All right.
It's only shit on the brain.
In 742.m41 is the Damocles Crusade. The Tau expand into Imperium territory with Imperial worlds defecting to the Empire. This triggers the Crusade, notably the Brimlock Dragoons and the Drukian,
Drukian
probably
Fenguard.
Drukian Fenguard.
Dorkian.
See fighting in the 3 years of the Crusade. The Drukian Fenguard are known for their massive ceremonial swords that their sergeants wield. That's what they're known for, big
Sounds
ass
dope.
swords.
Mhm.
This crusade, however, ends abruptly in an imperial retreat as the Tyranids show up, meaning that all of the planets that they paid for in years of bloody fighting are just back for the Tau, and the Tau retake them.
Now the Nids are the Tau's problem, essentially. Yeah.
Yep. So in the Damocles Crusade, on a Tau side, which we'll get to in the Tau episode, that's when they developed the Storm Surge and the Riptide, right, Tom? That was how, because they were basically left to deal with the Nids, and they're like, oh, fuck you, we'll just make bigger ones.
Yes and no. I mean, they developed special classes of Riptides during that time, but the Riptide was released
Yeah,
before
that's
that.
what
It was
it-
released in the second sphere, I think.
Oh, is it like the Arvarna and the Arvara?
Yeah.
Is that why?
Yeah, the
specifically
Arvarna and
speaking
the
of
other-
the
yeah.
Arvarna, because
The flamer one?
No,
It's the close
no,
range
That's
Close
the
one.
that's the Yavara. The
Yavara.
Arvarna is the heavy duty. It's meant for Tyranids.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, it was literally
It's got a
built to fight
cyclonic,
Tyranids.
Like defensive.
It has
defensively?
extra armor and extra
Yeah.
blasty short
It's
range
a-
guns.
Okay.
It's a
I
cool
built it for
ass
Tom.
model.
Yeah, it's
It is a
essentially
fucking
like,
dope model. I'm getting ready to build mine.
Death Watch built the Hellfire shells specifically to deal with biomass or like
Tyranids.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
when you see Hellfire stuff, that was
Yeah.
specifically designed to deal with Tyranids. So same idea, right?
Mhm.
You know, Tom builds a robot, and I built a bullet
Shell. We'll talk about it more when we get to the Death Watch
Yeah.
and when we get to the Tau. But yeah, just when we talk about the Imperium leaving and the Tau retaking and the Tyranids being there, the Tau didn't just die. The Tau overcame that challenge.
Lost
Kind
a
of.
terrific number of men in the process, though.
745.m41 is the time of unsung heroes. Hive fleet Bahamut smashes into the realm of Ultramar, and while the exploits and heroism of the Ultramarines are very well documented, the 47 regiments of the Ultramar Auxilia, which is the planetary defense force, aren't. They stand side by side with their masters. Tyranid horrors are cut down by disciplined torrents of lasgun fire, the guard fighting desperately, which is enough to buy more time for the Ultramarines to respond in force. The death toll to the PDF and Imperial Guard is astronomical, and their sacrifices are often overshadowed by the Ultramarine victories.
Are these
during
is this the Tyrannic War?
This is, yes, that is the beginning of the Tyrannic War.
Oh, beginning. Okay.
This is the Imperial Guard
Gotcha,
side of
okay.
that, because the
Guys come in
Space
and
Marine
save the
side of it
day.
is look how
Yeah,
great
it's,
we
it's
are.
look how badass we are. And the Imperial Guard is look how many men we have.
Yeah.
You
Look
thought
how-
the bugs had unending numbers?
It's
apes
almost like look how
together
long we
strong.
held them off so you could save the day kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is exactly what it is. The Imperial Guard choked the Tyranids with so many bodies that the
Oh,
Ultramarines
that's so
would
gnarly.
respond.
Like you just give them so much bot.
Well, it's not choked physically, but like just the time it takes the Tyranids to
Right.
fight.
Yeah,
Because the
to
go
Tyranids are used
through
to
all that.
outnumbering everybody by such a
Right.
large margin.
But when you're also
But when the Tyranids are then basically equaled in number,
yeah.
it's a very slow grinding. They'll
Very.
get through it all eventually because Tyranids could just recover and eventually
Exactly, where
just
humans
start again
can't.
tomorrow, and the humans will eventually run out of ammo and
Right.
men. Like men aren't just born overnight.
Like Tyranids.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
well, that's
Like
the
Tyranids,
thing
yeah.
about fighting Tyranids is in the middle of the night, if you leave the corpses on the ground, they'll take those back to their.
Well, not only that, but like Tyranids don't need sleep like people.
No,
you know?
actually, totally digressing off Imperial Guard. They don't eat.
They don't eat.
They don't eat.
They
They
bring
don't
bio-
sleep.
I
They
thought-
don't poop.
I thought
They're
Rippers
born-
eat and then jump in a fucking acid pool.
That's different.
They consume biomass or they pull biomass
But
back
not
to digestive
to-
pools.
Not for their
Not
own
for
metabolic
nourishment.
consumption.
Yeah, not for nourishment.
It's purely their bodies are born with a fixed amount of calories in them.
Mm-hmm.
They are sent out to the front lines, and either they die or they
Kind
retrieve
of.
biomass and come back.
And then jump into the acid pit.
Yeah,
Kind of. They have redundant systems just in case they're severed from synapse creatures, and in which case they can.
Oh, they can.
They can
okay.
jumpstart
But
their
it's like primarily
metabolism.
those organs
Yeah.
are non-active, and their metabolism is purely.
They're not. They don't need them.
because they were never
They don't need
designed
them.
for long-term use.
Right.
They don't even stay alive between planets.
But if the Tyranid forces are severed from the
They
hive
will then
mind,
become
not
animalistic
the-
and
It's
consume.
really weird to say this, but if Tyranids are severed from the hive mind, they do go into like a beast mode where
Animalistic.
they.
Well, I mean,
basically
Tyranids
become
are just
an animal.
made to adapt, right? So it
Right.
Yeah.
kind of goes.
It's like the idea of a frog changing sex because there isn't
Oh,
enough
okay.
female
Life
frogs to
finds a
reproduce the population.
Interesting. I didn't know
We'll-
it was that
we'll-
detailed.
we'll
but
talk- the
continuing on with Ultramar,
Tyranids are their
Yeah,
whole
a
other
whole
thing.
nother beast.
So yeah, so from 755.m41 to 791.m41 is the Sabbat World Crusade. This is the largest military undertaking since the
Makarian.
Makarian conquest, under the leadership of War Master Slido. Slido?
Let's see where
would-
I have
how-
to remember where.
It's
I think it's
Slido
Slado or
It's
something like that.
Slido?
Yeah.
That makes more sense. Under the leadership of War Master Slido, who is succeeded by the relatively young
Makarov.
Makarov.
Yeah.
This is located in the Segmentum Pacificus. It contains nearly 100 imperial star systems subdivided into subsectors, notably the newfound Trailing, the Karn group, the Cabal systems, and the Aranyes group.
That I'm
Very
never
nice,
really
very
sure
nice.
how they want
Very
you to
nice.
throw Y's in the middle of words. It just never makes sense to me.
It's
It's literally
for
just
flavor.
we took the word Aaron and the word yes, and we
Aranyes.
smashed them together. This is named after Saint Sabbat, a young girl who received visions of the Emperor of Mankind, and those visions were used to bring the sector into compliance during the Imperial Crusade of M35. I'm pretty sure that crusade was just called the Imperial Crusade. The Archon, a brutal chaos warlord, rose to power and rallied the tribes and cultists of the ruinous power under his banner. By 741.m41, the Archon had brought the Imperium forces in the region low and had conquered a significant amount of territory in the sector. In 755.m41, using his political acumen and celebrity, Slaydu petitioned the High Lords to be named War Master and led the Sabbat Crusades. We'll cover this in more depth, but Kev, you got couple tidbits
These
for us
same
before we move
worlds, I don't believe it was actually at the same time. It's the after Sabbath goes down, Makarov, War Master Makarov is all.
on. This all ties
Yeah,
into
yeah,
the
okay,
Gaunt's
right.
Ghost
I
stuff,
sometimes
basically.
I confused Macarius and Makarov for some reason. I just like blend the two together. But yeah, so these are the worlds that Gaunt's Ghost take place in. So if you've read any of those books, that is where, and then also Mentum Pacificus is the west side of the galaxy.
Yeah, and it borders, this entire area borders basically
the center
Terra,
of the
right?
map,
like the
which is Terra.
galactic core. So it's very important that this doesn't fall the way that it
Right.
almost
And
fell.
this was also where we learned about the Blood Pact, which is kind of the counter to the Imperial Guard. It is the chaos. It's not just like the rogue.
It's the most well-defined heretic.
It's the one
guard
with a leader.
in lore.
It's the one with a command structure. It's the one with the logistics interface. You know, it's an
Blood Pact?
act. Yeah,
So it's
the
almost
Blood
like Brood
Pact.
Brothers, but for chaos.
Yeah,
Okay.
in a way.
But Blood Pact
So
would
there's-
be like the regiment, right?
Yeah, it's essentially like there's guard regiments that defect, and like we discussed in the last episode, they defect. There's no navy to take them anywhere, and then they
Right.
basically just get blasted into oblivion. This is what happens when you have an entire armor,
You have a
Navy.
structure.
Yeah.
an entire section.
Right.
Like,
Like it's
a whole
somebody that was
system
on a
worth.
crusade or doing something.
Right. It's
like
basically
defect.
a crusade of chaos guardsmen
That's crazy.
with a leader and everything. Yeah, they have a war master. It's the Archon, as we mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah,
so this is the same guy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's who Gaunt's Ghost is fighting against among a bunch of these other regiments that we'll
Dude,
talk
it's
about.
so crazy. Like the
There's a
idea
bunch of other
of
stuff.
guardsmen fighting guardsmen when there's so much more like
Right?
to the
So I kind of wanted to touch on that. Heretic guard are not as uncommon as you would be led to believe. And the reason I say that is because in Eye of Terror campaign book, as well as the City Fight book, there are rules for
Mhm.
making traitor guard. There are rules for making mutant guard. There are rules for doing, they used to be called the
Right.
Lost and the Damned. There's an entire set of rules. And there was at one point a Lost and a Damned splat. I don't know if there was
I think
an
it
actual
was
codex.
yeah,
but there
it was
used to
like
be
a White Dwarf
splat.
supplement or something for them, and people have been like clamoring to get it back.
Yeah. So, and the idea, because again, the idea is that if half the Space Marine legions fell, there's no reason why half the guard or half the Mechanicus wouldn't. I mean, half the guard and half the
Yeah,
Mechanicus
they all
did too.
all of them
Um,
did.
And there's no reason those are gone. So the Blood Pact is one of the only good examples we have in
It's
the
the only one
lore
with
of
a
it
name.
existing, but there are other
Yeah.
examples.
Like
Yeah.
if
And we'll
like
touch
if there's
on those
another
when we
Black
talk about
Crusade
regiments.
and they go and invade, say, Ultramar, the Blood Pact would probably end up
Yeah.
in that story.
Hmm.
Or there
So-
would be another one that they would name because they would
Or
have
they
to
would
give something
name-
for the
yeah.
Auxilia to fight against.
Gotcha.
It's when you can't use Marines anymore, you have to come up with something
Right.
else.
Yeah. You don't. You have legions of Marines though. That's I guess the
Mhm.
difference.
Well, there's only 1 million. Like in the Imperium, there's only 1 million Marines. That's not something that's talked about a lot, but there's only 1
Which
million
sounds like a
Space
lot
Marines.
until you
There are
go
not
to a
more.
galactic as big as the galaxy.
Right.
There are hive worlds that have there are hives, not even hive worlds. There are hives that have 80
There's cities in
billion people
America
in
that
them.
have more people.
Yeah, I think there's four
more
4
people in them than
million.
Space Marines.
4 million in San Diego, or is it?
I remember there being like 3.8 something
Yeah.
a while back, but like that's
Yeah.
dumb.
So 1
It's
million
ridiculous.
1 million Space Marines is not a lot. It really isn't. It might be. I don't know why, but I'm all of a sudden thinking it might. We're off topic. We'll talk about the
Yeah,
Space
we'll
Marines.
get
There's at least 1 or 2 other heretic guard units that are named in lore, and we'll talk about them when we
Mhm.
get to regiments. We'll talk real regiments, and then we'll talk heretic guard. So in 762.m41 is the Cato campaign. This is fought between the Catachin
114th.
Yeah, 114th.
100 and
yeah,
114th. Okay, we'll go
yeah,
with
because
114th.
that would make M. Yeah,
If,
M makes sense.
if M is 100.
yeah, and then IV is 4,
Yep.
Right.
and then 10. It would make that
Yep.
14th. Yeah.
This is fought between the Catachan 114th Unseen Lurkers and the Orcs of the Death Skulls on the Shadow World of Cato. So the Catachans are led by Colonel Steel Eye Black. Cato is a world shrouded in poor visibility and features extremely difficult to deal with terrain. The conflict tests the Catachan to their limits in a string of bloody guerrilla skirmishes. The Imperium pulls ahead when the Sentinel Squadron locates and destroys the Orc Stampa factory. The Greenskins respond in a massive all-out assault, but it is quickly cut to ribbons thanks to Colonel Black's use of the famed Catachan ambush tactics. They're basically unable to pull ahead of the Orcs because of all of these small battles. They're able to bait the Orcs into one big battle, and the Catachans just fucking.
Well,
lay
because
them
while
waste.
they're all running in a straight line, you just shoot them in the butt, and Orcs don't really figure that out.
Who's
very well.
running? Who's running?
They're like, I can't see no whoomies. All the Catachans
Right.
are painted purple. So in
Purple.
793.m41
Fucking-
is Operation Solomons. 5 full regiments of Catachan jungle fighters under the leadership of Inquisitor Helvana Valeria disappeared during an undisclosed operation on the Necron tomb world of Solomons. Inquisitor Helena Valeria is the only one ever seen or heard
I
from
think that's
again.
just a fancy way to
happens a lot
spell
with the guard.
Helena. To be honest with you,
Yeah, I think so
that's
too,
that's
but
just supposed to be.
I like
Helena.
mine better.
I was
so.
thinking Helena.
I liked
like
yours
mine
better
better.
too, and I
I
kept
like
looking
mine
at it, and
better.
I was like, I think they're just trying too hard with that one.
That happens a lot. I
And
just
it's
throw
just
extra
malaria
letters into it.
with
It'll
a
be
V.
fine. Malaria with a V. Yeah, right. 795.m41, the Crando Rebellion. The Cadian 23rd Punishers crushes a heretical uprising on Candor 3. Lots of mutants and chaos horrors are mixed with these cultists. Wyvern suppression tanks are used in a brutal urban assault as the fighting is confined to packed city streets and urban environments. Casualties are high on both sides of the conflict. So this specific event is I am pretty sure the cover art and a lot of the interior art of the original City Fight book. I'm pretty sure the original City Fight book is supposed to be the Condor.
So now
3.
these are essentially what we're going
stuff.
through right now, like you said, is history, but these are like key moments that the Guard have been a part of.
to
Gotcha.
the Imperial Guard. Yeah. There's other stuff
Obviously,
going
yeah, yeah.
on.
There's
and we'll
tons
touch
going
it,
on,
yeah.
right? These are
Mhm.
just specific regiments and things that they've touched on, like key points in history for Guard.
Right. And we're giving context and connections to the rest of history. And if you guys were around when we did a short history of nearly everything, which we probably should have.
It should have been like a
developed-
5-parter.
Not developed, but spent a little bit more time on. Yeah. A lot of this stuff connects with that history. But as we move forward with the factions, we're going to retouch on history and kind of build in connections the way that we've done with Eldari and the way that we're doing with Guard.
Because it's hard to
Warlords.
remember all this at once. It's kind of good to kind of be like,
Oh, yeah.
all this stuff was happening,
Yeah.
but also these other things that we talked about were
Right.
also happening. Just to
Like
remind you.
Tyrannic War type shit,
Yeah.
or like where that falls.
And if you want a Cadian regiment to play with and you want your Cadian regiment to be super good at city fighting, like that's their entire fucking thing, and they've got a history with it, grab the Cadian 23rd, the Punishers. Like it's there. It's
Mhm.
in lore. You can grab it as a starting place and you can develop. And maybe they're not the Cadian 23rd regiment. Maybe they're not the Cadian 23rd Punishers. Maybe they're the Cadian 238th.
Punish me's.
Because it's another, another variation.
But
of
use that
regiment.
as the starting point.
Right.
Yeah. 801.m41 is the Storm Surge. This is a momentary flickering of the Astronomicon that sees thousands of Imperial Guard troop ships flung off course. Many are translated into real space hundreds of light years away from their destination or decades out of sync. Countless others never reappear at all. So if you wanted to screw with regiments out of time, here's a place to start. If you wanted to deal with regiments out of place, or if you wanted to make one that's just been missing for years and all of a sudden shows up in
Did they ever
42, here you go.
elaborate on the whole flicker of that?
So the flickering of the Astronomicon will come up in every Imperial force that we chronicle. We actually even talked about it in the Eldari episode. We talked about we didn't talk about it as a flickering in the Astronomicon, but we talked about the event that corresponded with it. This is like really close to the Cicatrix Maledictum becoming a thing. This is all lead up to the 13th Black Crusade. We are in the 801st year of the 41st.
So we're
Black
only
Crusade.
200
So
years
we are
behind
really
right now.
We are really close to
That's crazy. I didn't realize that what's coming up here was so close to the current lore. I thought that was old.
No, this is all old, as in it was written.
Right. I thought
20
it
years
was
ago.
farther back in the timeline.
That's that
Of
new.
lore.
No, we
That's
are
that new,
really
baby.
close.
Yeah. The new
It's that new.
new snooze new.
And 813.m41 is the Siege of Vrax, an imperial military campaign which lasted 17 years to retake the armory world of Vrax Prime from the heretical chaos forces led by apostate Cardinal Astra
Zaphon.
Zaphon. Astra Zaphon.
Yeah, this was like the most ridiculous battle in Imperial history. to quote Major Kill, who released a video on it a while ago, he called it the most clusterfucked Imperial battle ever.
Oh, really?
And there's a reason.
Literally,
and
like, you want to talk about like frat party gone out of control where everybody on their mother showed up? This is that party.
Oh, shit.
Like way more people showed up
primarily
here than should have by any right, even in Warhammer. This is too much.
So primarily, the Death Corps of Krieg, 88th Siege Army, is tasked with bringing the renegade cardinal down and retaking the world. When an attempted assassination of the apostate fails by the Officio Assassinorum, the Administratum Adepts determine the war of attrition will last 12 years. However, command was given to Lord General Zukel, the son of a well-connected imperial family with ties to the Navy and the Guards upper echelon. While he could follow and recite the Tactica Imperialis and his social standing was secure, his practical military experience was nothing. This led to a 17-year-long war of grinding attrition. While Imperial forces were victorious over these 17 years, 14 million guard and over 34 regiments were completely lost, and the entire original population of Vrax, another 8 million, fell to chaos and was subsequently exterminated.
17 years, that's not bad.
You're also forgetting that that was a war for nonstop. Like, they didn't stop and be like, oh, we need to wait for supplies. So, you know, no, this was daily, constant fighting.
Not to mention, they were sent there to save the population of
from
Vrax.
a wayward cardinal.
All of them died or became
I'm pretty
not all.
honestly. No. If you actually pay attention
all
to
of them.
I'm pretty sure
I'm
that
not done.
minus the few that were soldiers on the front lines, I'm pretty sure by the end of it, they were all turned into demons.
Oh
Every single last soul in that city had either been sacrificed or possessed.
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
And the planet was exterminatus, but it wasn't exterminatus from orbit. It was exterminatus by the death corpse of Krieg, killing every single
just out of
thing.
spite, leveled the city with artillery.
The world is declared dead.
Post victory leveled the city just cuz.
It's just like it's teabagging, but with artillery.
Yeah, but with earth shakers.
Yeah.
Earth shaker teabag. Full send, baby. Let's go.
Full send.
Extra lead.
But
so the world is declared dead and in perdita by the Imperium and placed under quarantine by Ordo Malleus Inquisitor Lord Hector Rex to keep it cordoned off from the rest of Imperial space. So this is another case where the Imperial Guard is like, just don't look here, nothing happened.
And it wasn't even so much they were trying to hide it. It's just that it was so fucked after this battle that there was no point.
There's no point to
There's just no point.
And there's a lot of things that the Inquisition doesn't understand, like that humanity doesn't understand about chaos. They're like, well, this area of space had a fucky thing happen. Maybe fucky just fucky happens here. So in 853.m41, Condor is overrun. The rebellion on Condor 3 rises again, this time led by traitor Space Marines. The planet is considered lost and virus bombed in an exterminatus action. 42 regiments of the Cardornian Guard remain in service, deployed around various battlefields of the Imperium. These regiments are known for being hell-bent on vengeance against any
So
chaos.
similar to Acadia.
There you go. You want to do a
There's quite a
Yeah.
few Imperial Guard regiments that are just like,
Fuck
no,
chaos.
fuck these guys.
Oh, yeah.
Just like there's a bunch of
Yeah.
Imperial Guard regiments that are like, fuck orcs.
Yeah, right.
And if you wanted an Imperial Guard force, again, from a lore building perspective, and the reason that we go through this stuff, if you wanted a guard force that was specifically anti-Slaaneshi or anti-Khorne or whatever, go with one of these that like had their planet lost
Yeah.
to cultists.
Or make up a planet and it was taken by cultists.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in 863 to 883.m41 is the Saint Celia Aftermath. Nearly a full Titan Legion turns traitor. Their guns focused on massacring the population of Saint
they're
Celia's world. The celebrated Knight Commander Pask rallies elements of the Cadian
they're saved.
423rd, who make a tactical withdrawal to the safety of the
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil.
Man, I can say it in
Yggdrasil.
Yggdrasil. Withdrawal to the safety of the Yggdrasil spaceport. During this retreat, Pasks, Knights, and the Cadians are able to bring down and confirm 4
so
Titan
gnarly.
kills. This includes the Reaver class Titan.
And it says
Oblivion's Angel.
Pask's Knights.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean Imperial Knights. Knight Commander Pask is his title. He leads a tank company.
Right.
Those are all tanks.
Taking out Reaver class
Pask's
Titans.
Knights.
yeah, he's
Yeah.
beating up Titans with Leman Russes.
That's gnarly.
I mean,
Able to rally and surround the traitor Titans on the planet's steppes, Pask and the Cadian 423rd spearhead the largest armored offensive since the Battle of Toleron. 8,000 tank companies,
Oof.
35 super heavy detachments, and the full support of 3 Imperial Knight households bring the Chaos
There's
Titans
what, like
down.
30 tanks in a
modern tank company
in
or
a-
whatever.
Well, in a regular tank company, right? In a Warhammer, tank
Warhammer
company, right?
tank,
There's
yeah.
like about 30 to 40 tanks.
In a a 2,000 point list, you get like 9.
Okay.
which is not a
Right,
a
right.
full company.
That's like a squadron essentially.
Yeah, okay.
Which they would also be broken up into smaller groupings of
Yeah, right. Like a fire team essentially,
Yeah.
but for a tank.
like for that it's the 3 Leman Russes operate together
Right.
and then groupings of 3, and then you could take 3 groupings of 3. That's how you get 9, and then you have tank commanders.
So imagine maxing out an apocalypse size force
Honestly,
on
that sounds
tabletop
like
with
20,000
just
points
Bane
of just
blades?
Bane blades and Leman Russes.
Oh, right.
Oh, yeah, of just Bane Blades. No, this is just a super heavy detachment
Oh,
side
right.
of just Bane Blades. And then you have 35 of them. Not only that, you have 3 entire Imperial Knight households. And like, sure, that's a little nebulous because an Imperial Knight household might only have 5 knights, but still 5 knights is fucking
That's right.
punishing.
5 knights on
now-
top of all those.
Now
tanks.
that you kind of mentioned like the sheer amount of Russes and super heavy and knight support for Titans, I mean,
Well, so Pask's Knights, and this would be one of those things that if you guys want us to go into more depth about this particular battle in an episode, we'd fucking love to. But Pask's Knights at that point were pretty beaten up. I think he only had like 2 companies and like a super heavy.
I
or
think
1 or
he
2
always
super
ends
heavies.
up having a super heavy in reserve. Yeah.
They needed to get to the spaceport and hold the spaceport long enough for reinforcements to land in order to bring this just super massive. And the Cadian 423rd has tanks, but they're not
Yeah.
known for
and I
being
mean, just the
tank
sheer idea of
Of tanks
a
downing
Reaver class
Titans.
Titan. Well, no, not only that, but like a Reaver class Titan turning on you, like the morale.
unnamed
like the
one.
morale. Like,
Oh, yeah.
I mean, because what was the Steel Legion battle that we talked about a lot, Kevin?
The
one
Battle
with
of
orcs?
Hell's Reach?
Yeah, the Battle of Hell's Reach, where it's like you have that, it was an Emperor class, yeah.
Yeah.
The Emperor.
Engine kill.
Yeah, and like
Fucking
seeing that on your side, you're just like, fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And then, but like
The other side.
yeah, it's like the other side. It's like, oh fuck. Like I think there's a meme about it where it's like, oh, the Emperor class Titan on the horizon.
Emperor class
And then
Titan
it's like,
appears on the
as it-
horizon.
as
It's
it
the
gets-
guardsman
it's like,
smiling,
yeah.
and then it's like,
You're like, but it has spikes. You're like, fuck.
Oh yeah,
There's
fuck
skulls
yeah.
and
Then
chains
oh
hanging
no,
off
fuck
of it.
no.
Oh shit!
Guys, why did Notre Dame crawl out of the ground and why is it covered in guns?
Quasimodo, no.
So So at 925.m41 is the Law of Grax. Billions of orcs invade the Raza
Rizza.
system. Regiments are raised.
I always thought it was
Ryza.
Ryza.
It's
Are
Ryza.
raised-
It's Ryza.
It's Ryza,
Like
which is
Ryza Rust.
also the Forge world.
Yeah, it's Ryza. I was just saying Ryza.
Yes.
Yeah.
Regiment, yeah, because Wu-Tang forever. Regiments are raised from every planet within 10 light years of the Forge world of Ryza, including Barak, Ulanai, and Katachan. The expanding war zone centers on Ryza becomes a meat grinder of bloody continued
Yeah, that's pretty typical.
conflict.
Say the Barack Obama. So, yes, we can. For the Emperor. For the Emperor. Yeah, I got myself
That's
with that.
pretty good.
Rock Regiment.
The Abominators.
The Barak Regiment.
The Abominators. That's
It's
the
like the
Katachan
101st
regiment.
Abominators.
The 115th Abominators.
Oh God.
926.m41, the Dulma Lin cleansing. The Dulma
Yeah, I think you got it.
Lin. Yeah, Dulma Lin. Colonel Starkin leads a single
Strachan.
regiment of Katachan
That's
second.
Strachan.
Strachan. Colonel Strachan leads a single regiment of the Katachan second, the only survivors of Planetfall, in a year-long guerrilla war against the Orc invaders in the subterranean depths of the
Put some
planet's
respect
caverns.
on that name.
Katachan's scouts eventually discover, I want to
It's
say Mothman, the
Mammothian,
Mothman
as
vault.
in like a mammoth.
Mammothian? Like a mammoth, yeah. Discover the Mammothian vault, which contains the Greenskins' massive underground city. Strachan leads a team of Katachan demolitionists into the Orc city, where in a skirmish, he is gravely injured by a stampeding squigoth.
Ah, he's fine.
They manage to drag Strachan's broken body to safety as the charges go off and take down the entire cavern.
It's fine.
On
He
top
did
of
it
the
on purpose. It's
Greenskins.
fine. He's fine.
However, he did. He actually baited the war boss into the path of the squigoth, and it killed the war boss.
It also
but
got
it
him.
also fucked him up bad. However, Imperial reinforcements under the command of High Praetor Oshpreen arrive 2 days after this victory and take all the credit.
Sounds about right.
Praetor Oshpreen is awarded governorship of the planet. He then redeploys the Katachan second to
What
the
a
Ulanai
dick.
system.
What a dick.
This comes back.
So what's funny is about just we'll touch on it again later when we talk about Katachan as a whole, but the whole like baiting the war boss to come get wrecked by the squig and like getting taken out, that's totally a Katachan thing. That's a very
That's
Katachan
a
thing to do in their culture. It is expected.
I'm here.
Well,
here.
it is
Come kill
expected
me.
that somebody from your unit survives to tell everybody else how gloriously you died. There's remember my story.
God
Yeah,
damn it, I'm
there's
here.
a,
I'm here. What are
there's a
you
Katachan
doing?
book that I had read, and that was like when
Dude,
like when
Katachan
shit was
is
starting
so
to get really
badass.
bad. One of the characters was like, "Oh shit, how do I get out of here to make sure that everybody remembers how all these men died?" Like that was one of the things that they think about. Because if they all die and nobody knows, then what was the point?
Yeah, it's like leaving no man behind.
and
style.
they're okay with leaving the body as long as the story lives on.
So in 927.m41 is the sentencing of Hammerot 4. The Hammerot 4 regiment is wiped out to a man attempting to protect the civilians of the planet Phalax from a demonic invasion.
Marbo. No.
The Departamento Minatorum redeploys the now completely massacred regiment to the liberation of Abraxas Citadel on Parisium. However, they fail to show up
they're all fucking
because they're all fucking dead. However, this does not stop the Departamento Minatorum from charging them with desertion and sentencing them all to death.
all zero of them.
This is just one of those things where, like, you got to be fucking kidding me. Really?
Well,
This happened?
Well,
This-
you gotta
this
think about,
happened.
like the military. Like if you know anything about the military and how it works, if it don't make sense,
Oh, yeah.
That's exactly
That's
how
exactly
it
how
works.
it works.
That's exactly how it was designed to work.
exactly.
So 928.m41 is Oshpreen's Award. The High Praetor's extremely lax and corrupt reign over Dumoulin allows the heretical Slaaneshi cult of the frantic Flensing to rise on the planet. The Katachan Second is the only regiment close enough to
Let's
offer
go.
assistance. But thanks to a mysterious series of communication failures that vex the Katachan, The Praetor and his corrupt planetary government are all left to their horrible fate
There
at
you
the
go.
hands of the cult. This is also what happens. You fuck
they
over the
fuck you-
Catachan, they
fuck
fuck
you
you
over
over.
right back.
Catachans are the ones who invented orc snipers.
Orc sniper.
I just 100% imagine that conversation in like every movie where somebody's on their phone and they're like, "What? I can't. I'm going into a tunnel. I can't hear you."
What?
You're breaking up.
I almost viewed it as like the captain or whatever, the Catachan general is sitting up there on the bridge with the captain of their ship, and they get a transmission coming in, and they're like, "I didn't get anything. Did you hear anything?" Delete.
It's that conversation with Harrison Ford in the first movie where like he's talking
yeah,
to the
we're all
stormtroopers, and he's
fine.
like, no, small react, we're all fine, and then he
Blam!
shoots.
We got about 10 minutes.
So in 941.m41 is the Second War of Armageddon. Orc warlord Gazgul Mag Uruk Thraka, that's the only time I'm pronouncing the whole damn thing, the prophet of Gork and Mork, leads a massive wah in invading the industrial hive world of Armageddon. Commissar Yarrick is on Armageddon to assist in the founding of the 4th Armageddon Steel Legion Regiment. He realizes the threat Gazgul poses and warns the planetary governor, Herman von Straub. Von Straub ignores Yarrick and banishes him to the Hades Hive, far from the planetary governor's seat of power. The orcs smash through von Straub's forces, likely like they are so many children's play blocks, and ravages across the planet, only halting when they meet Yarrick's well-ordered and organized defenses of the Hades Hive. Though Hades Hive eventually falls to the orc, Yarrick is able to stall the orcs long enough for reinforcements to arrive. Yarrick is grievously wounded by Gazgul himself in the final assault on Hades. 3 chapters of Space Marines under the command of the Blood Angels arrive to drive the Greenskins from Armageddon. Still alive, although barely, Yarrick is rescued in the remains of the Hades Hive and is lauded as the savior of Armageddon.
Is he, when he's banished to the Hades Hive, is he banished like with guard, or is he like taking civilians and defending the Hades Hive? Do we know?
He's basically, they say banished, but I think it's a little bit more like he warns von Straub, and von Straub is like, "Get out of here!"
Like, you're just a lowly commissar.
And he leaves.
Go
You're like,
defend
"Fine,
this
whatever,
fucking
fuck you, I'll
shithole
go."
back there.
Now, is this when?
Yeah, take your new regiment and
This
go
hive.
defend this.
Go
Yeah,
defend
the
this
shit
sewage
hive.
treatment plant.
So, when he's gravely wounded, is this the one where
No,
he
this
gets
is
his
not
claw,
that
or
one.
this is way after?
No, this one's somebody else.
I think this is where he loses. This is where Yarrick loses his eye. I don't think Yarrick gets the claw until the
Oh,
third
really?
war,
Yeah.
And this is the
I
first,
think.
the
This
first
is the
one,
second.
second one.
This is the second one. Yes, Marky, it is the first one because the first one.
Yeah.
didn't happen.
That's the one that didn't happen. Guys,
Yeah.
As the Inquisitors have told us, it
I didn't know
never
Yarrick was on that one though.
Yeah, Yark.
Believe it or not, Yarrick's like
Yarrick was
700
not in
years
the
old.
first one.
that was on Armageddon, right?
Yeah.
And this is also on Armageddon.
Yes.
Gotcha.
That's why these are called the first and second and third war for Armageddon.
Armageddon, guys.
And I believe there's also a fourth.
Oh, really?
And probably a fifth.
Just to lay it out, Yarrick was not involved in the first war of
No.
Armageddon. This is the first time Yarrick appears in lore, and this is the 941st year of the
Gotcha.
41st.
However,
the third war of Armageddon is only
it's
like
not
40
very long
years
later.
It's really not
However,
that long.
One thing about Yarrick, this may be his first time like appearing in the lore.
But he's established.
He, by this point,
He's had a model
Yeah,
since like second
but,
edition.
like character development wise,
Yeah.
he killed Gretchen at 10 years old.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
And he's like,
With his fucking
So that's-
hands.
and he's like ridiculously strong. Isn't
That's
he?
a
I mean, he's just so bitter he won't
We-
die. He's basically human Grimaldi.
So we
Just
actually-
full of
He's like
salt.
Grimaldi.
No, he is. He shut up a space marine by staring at him.
Yeah.
Oh,
A space marine's like, I don't need to listen to you, and he just stared at him until he shut up.
the lazy eye.
He gave him the lazy eye.
So we actually talked about this week in the community. Some people were asking me to help with lore, and we kind of dove into it. It's interesting to me that we as adults conceive children as not being very capable. The thing that we got to remember is that from like puberty to the age of like 16, 17, kids are fucking
Mhm.
psychopaths. The average street soldier in a street gang is like 12 years old, and they're capable of fucking murdering you. Like, I could not stand up to a street soldier in a street gang.
Because
I would
they would do terrible shit.
And as much as I want to be like, I'm a trained man and I'm strong, and a fucking 12-year-old with no like mental function of burying a hatchet into the back of my brain is gonna fucking kill me, because he's gonna bury a hatchet in my brain when I'm not paying attention. He gonna shoot me from across the street, and I ain't gonna know he's there.
Engulfed with orc bullshit.
Oh, okay.
And he was literally surviving on the streets, like hiding
as a kid against orcs.
Oh
yeah, and it breeds. And it breeds,
and that's
savage
why
fighters.
He's just like so jaded, bitter, and just fucking hates everything about life.
Because it's like,
and specifically orcs, because like
they're the ones that ruined essentially his life.
Yeah. I mean, his life had already kind of taken a turn for the worse right before the orcs showed up.
Yeah.
But then the orcs showed up, and he's like, okay, now I can focus this hatred on some shit.
It reminds me of like Mole from the South Park movie. And he's like, did God care when he stabbed me in the womb? It's like, Jesus, dude. Did God care when I was stabbed in the womb with a coat hanger? It's like this like 6-year-old.
So in 976.m41 is the Ryza escalation. War boss Grax leads a second and even larger orc Wah against the Forge World of Ryza, but is held off by the staunch efforts by an Imperial Guard force formed from more than 20 worlds. 992.m41 is Creed's Triumph. No, thank you. I'm just waiting for it.
Oh, God. It's really bad on the headset. It's really bad on the headset.
I'm sure everybody appreciates it.
That just started hurting.
Wow. So, Eldari forces attack the Cadian holding of Aurent. I can never do his fucking name. Ursarkar Creed?
Hold on. I have to like be like,
isn't it like Ursarkar?
Ursarkar Creed. Ursarkar Creed.
Like, yeah. Ursarkar Creed.
Ursarkar Creed's tactical genius, including the use of time-delayed orders, orders triggered by battlefield contingencies, and the use of Primaris Psychers that are used to provide a psychic smokescreen to the Canadian Canadian defenses. These tactics that he employs allows the Cadian shock troops to be triumphant over the Eldari at the gates of Arent's Hive Primus. There's probably more to this that we can talk about in the future. This would be one that I'd like to dig a little bit.
I mean, we could always
into.
throw up something like Patreon voting and like
let the Patreons decide which hero we deep dive on next.
Nah, they already decided we're doing. Yeah, they already decided we're doing Gene Stealer.
Well, no, I'm just talking about like deep dives on wars and whatnot.
Either like specific battles voted on by the Patreons, or go into like specific heroes.
Right.
Or those of you who are listening to the podcast, just fucking hit us up and let us know what sounds interesting.
Just send us
we'll
a
put it on the list.
Email
we'll put it
that
on
says
the list.
like fucking, I don't know, tyrannic or not tyrannic war. Yeah.
Hey dicks.
Or
Hey dicks, I really want to know about the Ryza escalation. What the fuck was that?
Your Russian
line?
Russian mail order bride.
That's all I could find. That's all I could find in lore. I'll buy more books. I'll buy the Black Library book on that specifically to read. No, I'm kidding. We'll find more information on a lot of this stuff. So in 997.m41, the Devourer rises. Twin tendrils of Hive Fleet Leviathan strike the Imperium from below the galactic elliptical. Billions of Imperial Guard are conscripted and deployed, but the Departmentum Munitorium Tithe Takers report worryingly high numbers of worlds unable to fulfill their demands for manpower. This leads to several dozen executions of planetary governors. That's it. That's all we get. That's all we get from the Guard in this entire conflict. Your numbers are lower. You're dead. You're dead to me, son.
If you won't get me the numbers I desire, I'll replace you with somebody who will.
Right. But the thing that I find interesting specifically about this time period and we'll definitely dive into it deeper when we get into the Tyranids, and we can definitely dive deeper into it if you guys want to hear about some of this stuff. Is one of the reasons the Imperial Guard is unable, or the planets are unable to make these tithing numbers, is because the Planetary Defense Force is getting fucking murdered by Tyranids.
Oh, by like the splinter fleets and whatnot.
It's like the Tyranids were already there.
I'm sorry,
by the
sir.
time
We
they
lost
started
18
drafting the
billion
soldiers.
yesterday.
Yeah. They're like, we don't have any more. They're all dead.
Dude, can you imagine that? Like you're on the front lines defending your planet. You got a family, like, and they're like,
And then they're like, hey, you're gonna get redeployed.
Bravo company, yeah, you're getting redeployed. Pull back, and you're going out into space.
And you're like, but I live here. And
That's
they're
a
like,
story
yeah,
right there,
but
man.
we don't care about this planet.
Right,
so
right.
you're going somewhere important.
That's
They're all-
lore. That's lore I want to
Yeah, they're all too bad. You chose poorly. Like, shouldn't have been born here.
Yeah, it sucks to be born here.
Yeah.
Why didn't you re-roll your character at birth?
Yes, you rolled a 1.
The other interesting thing specifically with this war, even
rolled like 5
Being
ones.
a human on a planet,
even
being
though,
attacked by Tyranids.
even though this is, like you said, it's very short for the Imperial Guard, they just didn't have enough men because they're mostly all getting killed. This is a super interesting tidbit, state of the galaxy wise. This Hive fleet came from, as it says, below.
Oh, backdoor
the
booty
galactic-
action, yeah.
Below, yeah. Whereas,
Yeah.
so we all think, oh yeah, space is a 3-dimensional thing. Yes, it is, but the galaxies are kind of 2-dimensional because
So the galaxies spin around a huge
Which
center
puts
mass.
them on an
so
axis.
basically, yeah. So you have above and
Negative
below
Z
the
axis,
elliptical.
essentially.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah. And the Tyranids are coming from above and below. Which
which
is
I
not
think it was
common
all the Hive
at all.
fleets except this one are coming from above, and this one came from below,
Right.
which
and
is
that's-
like, oh shit.
and that's why
Yeah.
the whole putting my tinfoil hat on, I want to have an episode on it, by the way, of like tinfoil hat shit.
Yeah. Conspiracy theories.
Yeah, where
40K
exactly
conspiracy
where
theories?
the human or where humans are essentially like, or the Imperium is essentially like, oh shit, they're coming from a different point, like into our galaxy. Like, are we surrounded? Are all other galaxies being eaten and
that's
devoured?
that's the thing about the Tyranids that provides that existential horror is
yeah.
like, not only do we not know how many, we now know they're coming from every direction.
Exactly.
And we also don't know, but we are pretty sure
something
they're running
else.
from something.
Right. I've also heard that.
There's that theory. There's also the theory
So
that it was
my
like
favorite-
a sort of Damocles triggered by the old ones, that after their death, eventually the Tyranids would just come eat everything as like a spiteful
And there was
thing.
also the
Come
whole
show
thing
up.
about the Emperor and his light and the Tyranids being attracted
being
to it, like
attracted
a moth to the flame.
Yeah, there's so many conspiracy theories.
Yeah.
Tyranids are moth, emperor is
That's-
lamb.
yeah. And what's funny is all of those could work.
All of
My
them suck.
favorite with all of this is the Astronomicon, or not the Astronomicon. What's the choir called?
Astropathic choir.
The Astropathic. Thank you. I'm the Astronomicon. So the Astropathic choir has been sent off the eastern fringe, and they've said that all they can hear is the silence in the
I was
warp,
gonna
basically
say,
the noise the
like
Tyranids
in the
make.
first Jumanji
And then-
movie, it's like when Carl was like, "Hey, like, hey, what the fuck is it?"
Loretta.
Yeah, Loretta, the girl at the desk. Hey, Loretta, like, we got, I have like a fucking 1022 my last, blah, blah, blah. And all you hear on the radio is like, rah, 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 rah. It's some fucking monkeys.
Oh yeah.
And he's just like, what the fuck?
And then Astropathic choirs on the western fringe say that all they can hear is wah. So it sets up this whole idea that one
It's
half of the
Tyranids.
galaxy is
Orcs.
just, there's just orcs on one side, and the other half
Can you
is
imagine just a full galaxy just
What is it?
going,
It's the northern side has chaos. Top and bottom has
Yeah, they're-
Tyranids.
Oh, Jesus.
The western side, the Pacificus segmentum,
Yeah.
after like the short section that is the Pacific segmentum, it's nothing.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
unexplored, and
Yeah, it's-
everything
it's-
that goes
it's
out there
outside.
doesn't come back,
Yeah.
except
doesn't come
the
back.
Carchadons.
Oh.
That's where they hang out. Carcharodons.
Carcharodons, yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Carcharodons.
The Carcharodons also prefer to exist.
Oh, they
above
hang
the
out there
galactic
too?
plane. So the Carcharodons
And
go
over.
up, and they basically watch the Imperium from the top. That's why the Carcharodons just
show
kind
up
of
in
fucking
random ass
show
places
up.
because they're just like,
That's if
"Oh,
I was ever going to be any type of space marine, that's who I'd be.
But yeah, they also hang out in what's known as the void, which is that section
Yeah.
past. Because if you look at the map, Terra is slightly
western
offset
fringe.
to the right,
Right.
but what's the left side of the map is half of it's blank,
Right.
and the Pacificus segmentum is like a sliver that goes
Oh,
down
okay.
there. It's super
It's pretty
tiny,
small.
and they just don't go. They don't go out there because
Hmm.
even there's creepy shit even for Warhammer
Right,
that
right.
they found out there, and they're not
It's like
cool with
Bermuda
it.
Triangle type shit. Like, you
Yeah.
just don't go there.
Well, good old warlord or War Master Ursus was like, "Hey, I got this big ass fleet," and the High Lords were like, "Great, go west, my son."
And then
he
never
went
came
west.
back.
And then, like after 20 years, he stopped sending reports, and they're like, "Yeah, we're not going to figure out what happened to him. Fuck that guy.
Fuck that guy.
he's just like,
Fuck him."
help.
That guy sailed into
you
a
guys-
whole bunch of fuck that.
A bunch
So-
of nope.
Yeah. So we've only got a couple more little tidbits here to cover for today, and then we'll go ahead and wrap up. So 998.m41 is the third War of
Yeah.
Armageddon.
This is the one you were thinking about.
Okay.
On the day of the feasts of the Emperor's Ascension, 57 standard years to the day after the last time he invaded, Gazgul returns. He opens the war by completely obliterating Hades' hive from orbit, a clear challenge to Commissar Yarrick. The old man returns to oppose the Orc warlord, this time taking command of the entire
This
world's
is where
armed
Yarrick
forces.
shuts up a space marine.
So
So
The Baneblade super heavy tank Fortress of Arrogance is salvaged from the ruined world
This
of
is Fortress-
Gotha.
Fortress
and
of
with it-
Arrogance. That's
so
fucking
so
awesome.
rewinding a little bit here to
Yep.
fill in some of this
It's
stuff.
it's a church
So-
on top of
So
the
yeah, this
Baneblade.
is the big war for Armageddon. This is
Okay.
the important one. This is the Hell's Reach War.
Oh, okay. This is
the most recent
Right.
War of Armageddon. Arguably the most important War of
Mhm.
Armageddon.
All
when
said
it
and
was-
done,
when it was
yeah.
called
So
Eleanor.
what ended up happening, this is the one Yarrick, right as all the orcs are coming in, as we've seen in Hell's Reach,
Mhm.
all the commanders meet. And if you've seen the movie on the YouTube, you hear that part where he just says Hades will burn.
right.
In the book, that's a huge like section. Well, not
Mhm.
huge section, but like a good section. And in that one, they're going over like how to plan their defenses. And there's Space Marine captains, multiple Space Marine captains here.
Mhm.
And they're all in the room, and then Yarrick he's just a commissar, which is funny. Like he doesn't have a rank other than commissar.
Right. It's
Gaunt
almost like an
has
Inquisitor.
Colonel Commissar.
Right. But
which
that
gives
was
him-
that was
Most commissars
commissar is-
their
right.
rank
And
is
we
just
talked about that.
commissar.
That was bestowed upon him from a planetary governor, I think.
No,
Yeah.
from a War Master.
War
War
Master.
Master. War
Yeah,
Master,
from a
that's
War
right.
Master. But in this case, he's just a commissar. But because he saved, the
Armageddon
planet essentially
last
by
time, yeah.
by linchpinning all his defenses
Like
at Hades.
Commissar General.
Yeah, he basically is honorary. They just never officially gave him that
Ah.
title. And then so when he's there and they're going over all these numbers, the actual line from the book is something like Hades will fall within the week. And these Space Marines are like, no, it won't. And he just stares at them. And then Grimaldus looks at them and goes, Hades will fall in a week. And then the guy looks back to Yarrick, and Yarrick's still staring at him. And then Space Marine mumbles, I will not be silenced by mortals. And Yarrick still just stares at him and then goes, Hades will burn within the week, and continues talking.
And so there's a reason that Yarrick isn't super happy with Space Marines 2, and we didn't really talk about it, but in the second War of Armageddon, I mentioned that the Blood Angels led 3 chapters
Oh,
to
right.
help
Yeah.
liberate the planet. The Blood Angels decided to fucking drop ship onto the
That's
Hive
right.
in order to directly
Right.
attack
And it
the orcs,
fucked up a
Killing,
bunch.
yeah.
massively slaughtering millions of
Like just
citizens of the
civilians.
Hades
Right,
Hive.
right.
Just civilians, because a drop pod
Rex,
fucking
whatever it is.
crashes through 16 floors
yeah.
of the Hive, and then Space Marines pour out into the orcs. And they're like, great, you're attacking the orcs, but you're
You're
also
not really
murdering
helping.
Right.
everything
And that's
in
kind
your
of the
path.
whole idea behind like kind of the
And-
hatred. And
And Yarrick is very human centric. If you
He's
if you want to
pro-human
split
and
trans
against
humans
everything
of
that's
Space
else.
Marines,
Like he tolerates Space Marines
and Space
because
Marines,
they're a benefit.
they're transhuman. Yeah, they're transhuman. So he doesn't
Yeah.
really like them. So yeah, so he resurrects this Baneblade super heavy tank. He turns it into the Fortress of Arrogance, and this is what
It
he
actually
leads the
was
fight
already
with
the
against
Fortress of
orcs.
Arrogance. He lost it in another battle. The orcs overwhelmed it, and he had to
Mhm.
abandon it. And then he went back
to go
for
back
it. He's
for
like,
it.
"No, I'm
Oh, okay.
getting my Baneblade."
okay, yeah, I think I remember that in the movie.
Yeah. No, that's not even in that. It's a completely separate planet.
Oh, okay.
It's like on another planet or province.
We've talked about Yarrick being crazy enough to
He
go
like
get
he
his
like
Baneblade
runs in.
black.
He's like jumping over
couple of
orcs. And he
times.
jumps in, and it's all trying to catch me riding dirty.
Catch a ride.
So when we cover Armageddon as a planet, and when we cover, we'll definitely touch on Commissar Yarrick a little bit more in detail, and we'll probably cover Commissar Yarrick a little bit more in detail when we talk about the
Commissary,
Commissariat
yeah.
as well.
That'll get a hold.
I was gonna say the
Commissariat.
Commissariat.
So Yarrick stops Gazgul's hordes from overwhelming Armageddon's major hive cities, and the conflict degenerates into a grueling war of attrition. Gazgul himself is repulsed from the world, and Yarrick pursues his nemesis alongside the Astartes of the Black Templars, determined to make the warlord pay for the death and destruction visited twice upon the world of Armageddon.
But before that's when he kills the other war boss.
Right, and takes the arm. Yeah. We'll get into it on
Actually, I think
maybe
that was the second war. Yeah, that's how they ended the second war. Is Gazgul left? He was like, "I'm gonna go Wog in another place. You got this." And that war boss was like, "Wog," and then Yarrick was like, "Wog."
He's like,
So Yarrick, during the second war of Armageddon, if I recall correctly, Yarrick leaves Armageddon because Armageddon is kind of okay. Like the war is dragging on. Yarrick goes to do something else. And Gazgul is like, "No, you're the best fight I've ever had." So Gazgul chases Yarrick to bring Yarrick back to Armageddon to finish the second war of Armageddon. That may
Yarrick gets captured at one point also. And then Gazgul lets him go with the actual line of, "Good enemies is hard."
I gotta stop you, dude. Or this is gonna be a Yarrick episode. So there's two things that we're definitely planning on doing. We're planning on covering planets specifically, and we're planning on covering named characters specifically. So yeah, we will definitely dip into Yarrick, maybe season 2. We're kind of playing with format and everything, but yeah, Yarrick, I'm with Kevin. Gaunt needs his own episode. Yarrick needs his own episode.
Sly and Straken, all the Catachan heroes could probably get together because they don't have any like.
Yeah, that's what I meant by like we have a characters
books
episode,
about them.
not like a full episode dedicated to Sly. It would be more
right. Like Yarrick will get his own episode
because he's massive.
Right.
Gaunt has like 8 books.
Yeah.
Straken, Marbo, and
is like what do you call it? Footnote lore kind of thing.
Yeah.
Calgar will get his own.
Blood Angels, man. Dante,
yeah.
Dante will probably get a whole fucking episode. Yeah, Dante and Yarrick probably have very similar personality.
Right.
He's just the man who's just so over it. He just wants to fight and die, but it never happens.
Mephiston, he's probably he's probably a good like by episode. Dante, Mephiston.
Yeah.
We'll definitely have a bunch, and we'll definitely cover heroes from other factions too. There's a Shadow Sun will probably get his own set of episodes, I would imagine.
The Talons, depending.
No, you could do Farsight and Shadow Sun in one episode.
Yeah,
we'll probably do a Tau Empire series, and we'll probably do an Enclave like mini series.
Who's that one that got capped?
Oh, Unva.
Yeah, he was the so that was a big.
He was the Big Mac Supreme. He was the Ethereal Supreme.
Big Mac Supreme.
That's what he had. The La Royale with cheese.
He clapped his cheeks. Was he clapped by another Tau or
clapped? It was an assassin.
Imperial?
Yeah.
I think it was
basically Imperium sent a bunch of assassins, and like Farsight was like, "Fuck you," melted him. Shadow Sun was like, "Fuck you," melted him. Unva was like, "No, please," and then died.
Extra crispy.
To wrap us into the last couple of events before the 13th Black Crusade kicks off in earnest, 452.999.m41. So this is the 452nd day of the 990th year of the 41st millennium, the Felguard incident. The fortress world of Kelthorn turns to chaos, and dozens of Imperial Guard regiments are sent to quell the insurrection. The Cadian 39th Regiment assaults the planet's capital city of Felguard, but are repulsed when demons rise from the bloody mire of slaughtered guardsmen and chaos cultists alike. Only when the great unclean one at their head is slain by Castellan Balvok's heroism does the demonic tide recede. So in the 757th day of the 999th year of the 41st millennium, titled Warzone Damocles, though the Imperium recovers numerous Tau-held worlds during the Zeist campaign, these victories prove to be a distraction, allowing the Tau forces to overrun the defenders of the Hive world Agrelon. Unable to contend with the previously unseen Tau battle suits of huge size and power, Argalon's defense forces are driven from their world in short order. The planet's location is a gateway world to a lot of neighboring star systems, and this is a pretty big loss strategically. Segmentum Command escalates operations in the war zone Damocles, centered around itself. Waves of reinforcements begin a desperate rearguard action to slow the Tau advance. Meanwhile, a mighty armada of Imperial warships departs from Agarlan, bearing over 1,000 regiments of Cadian, Catachan, and Elysians.
Now it's just overlapping
with-
from like a sphere of expansion. Is that?
Yep. Yep.
Okay.
With Toleron and the Coltholian Guardsmen and several full battle companies of Dark Hunters and Extenuator Space Marines, as well as Titan Legions. The Hammer of the Imperium's retribution bears inexorably down upon the attacking Tau, its wielders determined to crush the upstart Xenos once and for all. And I think I'm pronouncing Agrellan wrong. It's Agrellan.
It's the Agrelon sector. I'm pretty sure.
So I have been
Agrellan.
saying
Ag-
Agrellan, right?
Agrellian.
Agrellian.
Oh,
Agrellian.
yeah.
Agrellian.
Yeah.
Agrellian
Agrellian.
sector.
Is
Agrellan.
it IAN or AAN?
No. It's AGRE. Oh no, LLAN.
Agrellan.
Agrellan.
It's Agrellian.
Agrellian. Okay.
It's not
I like that.
IAN.
Agrellan. Yeah. So if I pronounced it wrong in that stuff, guys, listeners,
Fuck it.
sorry.
That's part of the fun.
In the 992nd day of the 999th year of the 41st millennium is the night of 1,000 rebellions. Countless rebellions erupt simultaneously across the breadth of the Segmentum Pacificus. Despite the brave efforts of the Imperial Guard garrisons, even the supposedly secured strongholds of Enclades, Darkhold, and Ministeria are overrun. Panic spreads as the Imperial contact is lost with large swaths of the Segmentum. So this is when this is the second time that like a lot of astropathic links and stuff go down. A lot of people can't get communication anymore. All of this stuff is like kicking that can closer and closer and closer to the Cicatrix Maledictum. Now, during a lot of the stuff that we just covered that happened in the 999th year of M41, the Black Crusade is happening. The Black Crusade has a lot of very, very specific information in it, which leads to how the Guard are currently in the 42nd millennium. And the Black Crusade is probably going to get a chunk of next episode at the beginning. It'll probably be like a quarter of the beginning. And then we'll talk a little bit about the era and Dominus, and then we'll bust into regiments. And we'll just kind of see how it goes. There's a good chance, guys, that this is going to be our first 5-parter, which is cool. There's just a lot of stuff to cover because the Imperial Guard is very important to the Imperium. And
I mean,
It's
We'll
also
touch
like
up-
one of the huge pillars.
the
of-
Imperial history is the Imperial Guard history. It's been around since
Right.
day one.
Right.
Like, it's not.
yeah, and there's a reason that Tom listed these three as the most important three. The Orcs, the Eldar, and the Imperial Guard are so core to the way that this entire game works.
I said that.
He said.
Yeah, you did.
All right, guys. Well, that brings us to a close for episode 3 on the Astra Militarum. Again, we're kind of pointing out all this lore and we're kind of having all these little talking points because we're trying to illustrate kind of good places to jump into developing your own stuff from a perspective of the Imperial Guard, as well as we had talked about this in our creative writing episode, as well as here are some kernels to borrow from when you're starting yours. Borrow what exists. Grab one of these little events that is only a couple of lines here and there.
Right,
Copy
they can just
it
be-
and just tweak it to what you want it.
Yeah, they can just be little kernels for,
Yeah.
something that can grow into something bigger.
That little kernel in that
And
turd.
Exactly.
We do have another creative writing focused episode coming up, probably before we hit Gene Stealer cults. So as we move out of one series of our roundtable episodes where we debate some stuff, our conspiracy theory episodes where we
Yeah,
debate
we're
some stuff.
also going to need to do I guess it could be a creative writing episode on Kevin's Guard and his personal lore.
We'll have
Yeah.
Kevin's personal lore and an upcoming lore stories, specifically talk about how to write for the Guard. That could be pretty cool too.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, guys. I hope you really enjoyed this episode. We spent a lot of time kind of compiling all this stuff together, and we want to hear from you guys. Extra questions you have, lore you have, ideas you have, anything. There are 2 really easy ways to communicate with us that way. The first is by email. You can use either under the Hive of Madness at gmail.com or jimdarkgaming@gmail.com. Arguably, probably the other biggest way, and I had mentioned there were two, is Discord. We're very accessible to our Discord community. I had a couple of conversations this week specifically about Space Marine lore, and then Minion Coffin, one of the members of our community, and myself actually wrote an entire Space Marine chapter this week, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty much, I think Kevin and I are usually on there gaming too. So it's one of the few Discords where it's actually like fully interactive. Like we try to talk to everybody and be open and, just take part in everything.
Yeah, we like it. And that's a huge focus. Our first main focus when we started everything is we wanted to talk about lore and we wanted to talk about cooperative storytelling and lore building. We need a community to do that. And it's been so fucking enriching and cool to see the community build. And I think at this point, our second goal really is build our community even more. So we definitely love it. All of you guys come into it. And if you enjoy the show, please share and bring more awesome people to our amazing community. Another way that you can help us a little bit more directly as we try to grow and either get new equipment or just sort of meet some of the milestones that we have and some other things is to donate some money to us, help us out through Patreon. That's patreon.com/underthehiveofmadness. All of that stuff, all the funds that we generate through that immediately go back into supporting the podcast and making sure that we are able to continue doing the show. It really, really does help. You guys are freaking awesome over there. We've started to do some extra things as we grow a little bit. We're going to try to do some giveaways a couple times a year. We're going to try to send out some swag and some merch ideas that we have a couple of times a year if we can afford it. And we're also trying to reward you guys with access to things like our painting contest and some art assets that you guys can use through companies like 3D6 Wargaming to get some objective modifiers and some other stuff done. The other thing that we do through Patreon is we have a video podcast. So as we are recording the podcast, there's a video element to it. You guys can see our lovely faces. You can hear all of our blunders, all of our bloopers, and all of our mistakes. I do not do a heavy amount of editing to the video podcast. You also get a little bit extra tidbits as we talk. We kind of roll from our production meeting right into the beginning of the episode with just some stuff that we communicate directly to Patreon. I think it's a pretty cool little perk. We're working on whether or not we can generate some extra content now, and we will keep you guys appraised of that as stuff goes on. The last important thing to kind of mention is that if you are looking for us other places on the internet in the interim where we're working on our website, we do have a link tree set up. As normal, I put all of the links in the show notes to everything we've talked about. And when we do have some extra things like Imperial maps or anything like that we've mentioned in the episode that we're going to have available as a link, we throw it down there too.
Yep. And be sure to follow us on that link tree with all of our social medias. We're on Facebook. Ryan's constantly posting, miniature Mondays, work in progress Wednesdays, throwback Thursdays. If you want any of your minis featured, we're also on Instagram as well as Facebook with Ryan. And Twitter as well. So we're all over the place. Feel free to check us out. Give us a follow if you're listening to the pod. And Discord's not your thing. Maybe Facebook's your thing. Maybe Insta's your thing. Maybe eventually Ryan will start dancing and singing again on the TikToks.
Yeah. I've got some TikTok. I'm trying to do 30-second battle reports. It's a work in progress.
Yeah.
The extra thing we are throwing into the show notes this week, just for you guys, are the rules to Battlefleet Gothic are actually free. They're just a little hard to find. So I will include a link down there if you're interested in downloading the rules from Games Workshop themselves on a game that they used to produce. You can do that. And then you can either try to find some of those old, pretty fucking epic pewter miniatures, or there's a lot of people who have ways to make your own Battlefleet Gothic forces. It's pretty neat to play around with. I hope maybe we'll get support for it again, but in the meantime, there is a resource to get those rules.
That would be a cool one to see make a comeback.
Definitely.
That'd be fucking awesome, man.
But in the meantime, I'm pretty sure you could print some Battle Flotilla Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's right. Battle Flotilla Notre Dame. The other thing, please, you Apple Podcast listeners, rate us and give us a review. We want to know how we're doing. We want to know how you guys think we can make our content better. Those of you who are on Spotify, please give us a star review. Those of you who are on Stitcher, those of you who are on Google Podcasts, reach out to us, give us those likes, give us those follows, give us those ratings on all the different platforms. We are on 10 platforms. We are going wide. We are going to continue to go wide as we expand. And there you go.
Yeah, help us out.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I feel like the archivist's breath is just steaming down my neck in a very unpleasant way, and I've had a couple of run-ins with her in the past. Good run-ins, run-ins over coffee and biscuits.
Nah, Tom just took a fat shit. That's all it was.
Yeah, well,
You're downwind.
I'm downwind of beasts. Okay. Well, we definitely have the book we weren't supposed to steal from the archivist in our collection, I believe. Kevin, you told us when we open it, we're supposed to say Kata Vinicta.
Yeah, that sounded about right.
That's the last word?
You got it again.
Yeah, try it one more time.
Klata Virictu. That's the last word.
You got
right?
some bad allergies, but I'm pretty sure that'll do.
All right, I mean,
Clitoris.
this book's face is literally a face. I don't know if we want to open it and read from it.
I
Put your
warned
finger
you
in its
that's
mouth.
what happens.
I
Put
mean,
your dick in it.
do you trust this dude Ash that hired us to find this book?
I mean, he had one hand that's a chainsaw. That's pretty standard for Imperials. So,
Yeah,
it
that's
true.
seems like he's on our
Yeah, I
team.
trust Yarrick, so I trust this guy.
Hey, it's just some Evil Dead shit, though. You never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, you never know.
Remember, when you're on your data slate cafetorium drinking your recaf, always keep one of your eyes on your game and one of your eyes out in the crowd. You never know when those four-armed emperors are going to come up and try to reset your score in Candy Crush. It's bad. I heard it's an epidemic. Four-armed emperors and Candy Crush it's just bad. I think they're physically crushing people
It's called
playing it.
Sump Crush.
It's
Yeah.
some crush. I think they're
Some
physically
crush.
playing,
Some
crushing you.
crush.
Some crush.
I like that.
Various like radiation things fall down and you have to match them together.
Sounds like a really fucked up sex move. Like give me the old sip crush.
Gave her the sump.
This is where I end it by saying motherfucker.